What is up, gang, and welcome back to another episode of Inspired By. It is way too dark in here for a day like today. So recently, a member of the community asked, how do you create a summer sound? And I think that's so interesting because really the answer lies on harnessing what nostalgia sounds like first. Most art recycles itself in a 25 to 30 year span. So what was popular 30 years ago, you'll start to see cropping up again now. A lot of producers that are hankering for that summer vibe and that are a similar age to me will often gravitate towards recycling or referencing the sounds that they heard from when they were a child on that summer vacation. And of course that lands us in the 90s and early 2000s. A good way to see what was popular then is of course just Google the charts. Here you'll find a lot of trance, garage and house music. And that links pretty closely to what you're hearing from Pink Panthers and basically the whole UK drill genre right now. But you'll also find R&B dominating the charts, from artists like Ashanti and Nelly to Maya and Destiny's Child. And these are the influences that I really want to focus on for today's summer video. You see, with the R&B producers, they were already sampling a lot of what their parents were listening to. So inside that, you'll find a lot of funk bass lines. You'll also find references to percussion sections that sound like they're from a disco song. It's an absolute rabbit hole of nostalgia now. So why don't we turn to Ableton and I'll show you how to create these things in the DAW. I wanted to start things off with a really funky bass line. Think Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I grabbed the Ample Bass J from Ample Sound. So the reference that I pulled was from Burna Boy's summer single that has just dropped. The bass line is almost identical apart from the rundown at the end here. It's a really funky bass line that I'd be surprised if it wasn't sampled. Underneath that, I like to put a sine bass that I've just made from the operator here, and that just backs up that low end bass sound. Another artist that nails the nostalgic vibe, I'm sure you'll agree, is The Weeknd, especially with their new summer bops from the show The Idol. I took a lot of notes on their song Popular, which again is using those kind of R&B chords. D flat major for the chords, and this is what it sounds like. I actually used 3 layers for these chords. The first one being a serum patch, which is just kind of a warped sine wave with a little bit of EQ. We've got another sound here, which is a little bit more mid-focused. All the warmth is going to come from that instrument there. And then the final layer is just this kind of bright saw wave synth. This synth is much wider with a very 80s kind of sound. Put those together. When it comes to the verse section, I'm just low passing those chords and getting rid of the very bright saw wave synth. At the end of our 4-bar loop, we're in 100 BPM by the way, I just wanted to add that kind of funk vibrato stab that again gives you that nostalgic sound. So I think we'll agree there's a lot of space in the mix, and a lot of that space is now going to be filled with your drums and percussion. Check this out. This episode is sponsored by Distrokid. They've got you covered when it comes to releasing your music and marketing it. From hyperfollow tools to sourcing a good canvas image for your Spotify release, or even downloading a cover license so you can start releasing those lo-fi flips. They've even made things easier with the release of their iOS app as well. I've been banging on about Distrokid for years now, so if you want to start releasing your music, then just use the link in the description below. Let's dive back into it. So you might notice that we've got some DJ scratches there. Really easy to create if you don't have a DJ scratch sample, or if you don't DJ yourself. Just take a kick and then reverse that sample. I've got a very simple kick drum pattern. Kick, 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 kick. I'm using the snare sound from Mary Mary Shackles, another R&B banger. And I'm mixing that with just a brighter clap sound. You can see that that's off the grid a little bit. It's going to give me a little bit more of a humanistic feel, a little bit of a bounce. We're using the cowbell. And every now and then we'll have things like a triangle, the flexotone, or we'll have the chimes. In between these elements, I'm utilizing shaker samples and hi-hat samples, and accenting those with open hi-hats and cabasses. On this track, I have an EQ8 high passing a disco percussion line. I've got OTT to remove all the lows and again, add a bit of like kind of staticky brightness. The same goes for vocoder, again, enhancing all of that kind of white noise. The auto pan, just moving it from left and right, it gives you this. That'll just fill in the blanks between those one-shot perks that you added. Add a couple of crash cymbals to this and you're done. Coming to the end, we still have a little bit of space and we still want more nostalgia for our listener. So I've taken the Ashanti Rock With You vocal. I've added a little bit of manual delay, the phase guitar preset in the phaser flanger, a little bit of Valhalla reverb, and then just EQ'd that sample, especially for the verse where we're going to low pass it. And then underneath that, I wanted to create more of a lead flute line. It's going to be very subtle, but it's going to sit under everything. Just using this Sine Serum preset I got from Splice. Again, a little bit of OTT to take out the lows and boost the highs. EQ8, and then Studio Verse by Waves. Essentially, you just use this search by audio function and it analyzes that audio and goes, I think that sounds like a synth flute or drums, etc. And then we'll add a bunch of presets and plugins for you in which it gives you some macros that you can edit as well. So this is just making that flute stand out. Okay, so as we enter the verse section, I'm actually taking away some of the elements from the drums so they feel a little bit more stripped back, and I'm adding this new 808 layer. The great thing about the 808 is it sets itself more in a modern landscape. It's a sound that we're used to hearing right now. So using this in the verse when all the vocals or rap comes in is going to be really brilliant. And all I needed to do was just change my staccato operator lines to more legato sub-bass lines. And then that's just going to kind of back up that sound. That 808 is now really wide with a line delay. For the intro, just loads of DJ scratches and kind of the perk lines from your chorus section. So there we have it, guys. What did you think of today's episode? Do you agree that the sound of summer kind of sets itself more in this nostalgic realm than anything else? Have your say in the comments below. As always, the stems and the project of today's video are available at the Patreon. And if you want to be featured in next week's video, just check out the post from Wednesday, 14th of June, to where I dropped some stems that you can remix. I'm going to be picking one person to feature at the end of next week's video. As always, it's a pleasure to sit down with you guys. I've dropped a nostalgic playlist over this way that I think you're going to want to check out. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.